This room's starting to look like some work's being done in it. Do you feel like you've been doing some work? Good. How do you feel about the exercise you just did? Do you enjoy it? Was it interesting? Wasn't it? You really crystallized. Wasn't it interesting being your own subject, your own client, and experiencing the influencing process the way they will be experiencing it? Isn't that a really useful way of doing things? Do you want to come up? No? No? Is it a quick one? He can't stand right now.
That was the single best exercise I've been through in any hypnotic training in 16 years.
So he says in 16 years of hypnotic training, that's the single best exercises I've ever been through. Please sit on the testimonials when it comes time. That will really be worthwhile, right? So go ahead.
Okay.
Just stand to the side a little bit, that way the camera will go and catch a shadow and your beard will be full-faced.
So I really enjoyed this exercise, and I believe that I understand it more than I actually think I do.
Always good.
So what I was doing is we were identifying the problem, and then I was using some mind-bending language to try to weed out exactly how I can elicit some values, and to get her in that trance state. And then once I would start to use the mind-bending language, I would go into like some yes sets to try to direct her to get, because the problem was people will get stuck in the loop if you just keep asking questions. They'll just keep saying, well, I'm not sure, I don't know, I think so, yeah, at one point. And so, correct me if I'm wrong, the reason my question basically is this. The point is to kind of guide them to a solution-oriented thing where they don't really have any other choice except to say, yes, that's how I want to feel better about that.
Right. And really, we want to put them, in terms of the not having a choice, it's the question of resolving the conflict they've created by being like, I don't know, and it's just a problem, but I can't really tell. The bit where I wouldn't say that you don't give them any choice is what conclusion they land to. You can offer them reframes, but that's really more a test to see how well it suits that person. And if they come back with another objection, great. Because they're telling you more about how they need to resolve whatever concern that they have, right? And that's the main thing. Now, the simple way of doing that is very simple. If you want to have a simple, quick formula, it's they have a problem, you acknowledge the problem the way they present it to you, you create a little mind-bending moment, whether it's a little bit of language or a magic moment, something so they no longer think in the same loops like they used to, that you've already spotted that loop happening. Immediately afterwards, like in that processing space, as long as it's not, if it's a crazy processing, you need to let them come down a little bit. But before the intellect kicks in again in normal mode, you present to them the reframe. It's a very simple reframe. What happens is they'll latch onto it as a new thought or idea because it's easier than trying to figure out what's going on, right? Now rest assured, if it's not appropriate to them, they'll latch onto it, but another objection will arise because it hasn't quite satisfied the concern that they had. But if it does, because especially if you know the industry, you'll know the concerns, which means you'll know how to resolve those concerns ahead of time. That's part of your job about knowing your field. Then you can offer them valuable reframes that takes care of these things automatically, at which point they'll go, oh yeah, that's yeah, fine, I get it.
Yeah,
and it's done.
Yeah, so for like the problem was, wanting to change but not being able to stick to a program.
Right.
And so I said, well, what about change that might happen to you that would happen before you're able to change? And she kind of just said, huh, like that. And then I said, that's right. And just what about change would make you feel really good?
Excellent. Do you see the beauty of what he just did? That is exactly what we've been talking about. There's a mind-bending moment which actually has logic within it, if they got to think it through. And then the reframe is very simple. We're going to find a way that you can change so you can feel good. And it's like, yes, that's what I want. Right? Shall we begin? Okay. Right? Beautiful.
And
Give them a round of applause because that was a beautiful way of doing it.
I just have one more quick. And so then at that point is when you kind of start to use more language patterns to structure a more concrete change as opposed to just leaving it at that. And then you I went into a future memory and created.
Because now you've just gone back to this bit here where you summarize their values, including whatever they just said, which is like the idea of feeling good about change. Then you go to the future memory of how good they'll feel once they have change and so on. And if it's a change works process, then you just go straight into induction. In fact, the future memory will be the beginning of the change work. you're already into it. You're now rolling up your sleeves and doing the work. You're done.
Exactly.
Excellent. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you. Give him a round of applause and the next one comes up.
I'd just like to ask Igor, so you have the problem and you acknowledge that already.
Yep.
So you have a choice to use mind-bending language or a magic moment.
Absolutely.
My understanding is a magic moment you can give maybe an analogy, a fact, a testimonial, as you said. But can you, I don't have any background on mind-bending language, actually.
Okay.
So can you give a clear example? You said there's a shock moment there when you
Sure.
give the other than.
The simplest way of doing it is, do you remember what as Eric just said a moment ago?
Mm-hmm.
That was a mind-bending moment. Did you follow all his stuff he was saying about changing before you're ready to and considering things after that's done? So by the time you realize what's going on, it's just about changing and feeling good, isn't it?
All right. Okay. So it's, but you actually, all right. Okay. All right. Got it.
Do you understand?
Yeah, yeah. All right.
Thank you. And by the way, just give him a round of applause. Thank you. The reaction you just saw is what happens when you offer someone the objection destroyer. It's exactly, it's like, yeah, but, all right, thank you. Seriously, I know, how many of you guys have done something similar to this outside of the context of this training? Have you guys used it in this way before? Anyone? Would it be fair to say that that's actually a pretty standard response when you're using, whether it's a magic moment or mind-bending language, it doesn't matter so much. The point is, you've shocked the brain a little bit through novelty, surprise. It goes out of gear for a second. You present a simple reframe for them to latch onto, and then suddenly, oh, all right. This is the new reality, I guess, fine. But it's got to be a simple reframe. You can't have a complex system of levels and gears and anarchy and hierarchy and so on, because then that just creates another level of confusion, and that's not what you want. It's got to be a very simple, precise, clear message that they just get. Does that make sense?
Hi.
Hi.
My partner, Mark, and I, we were both wanting to go through the avenue of getting a client basically for therapy. But the problem that we were addressing is when a client, and I'm sure that you can apply this to different avenues of business, whatever field that you're in, what if they're having a problem with not seeing themselves worth like having any value that's worth changing,
Sure.
or the thing that they want is
I'm not worth changing and so on,
yeah,
right?
that, or yeah, it's just not worth
Fair
it.
enough.
Like they're feeling numb, almost even suicidal.
Sure. Well, the first question is, what kind of clients do you see? If they're already calling you, well, there's already a motivator there, and that's what you end up using, right? If it's a question of going to someone who doesn't really consider change, and you want to motivate them to want to change, that's a much bigger deal, because now you've got to tread careful territory about how much you impose and so on. In that case, the first thing you want to look for is, can you find anything of value in their life? You need a lever. You need leverage. Otherwise, there's nothing, right? The leverage might be, they might be very down on themselves, but it's all about others, right?
Okay.
So to the extent that you can do you can be more of a force for good in life, doesn't it make sense to change yourself too?
Okay.
Because how else are you going to help others? So that's the leverage. You see how I've contrasted a conflict, which is, I'm not worth changing, but I want to help others live in a better world. Well, how can you help others until you have the capacity to help? You help yourself enough that you can do something worthwhile for others too.
Just another question, like so.
Let me just pause you there, because
Okay.
the question you've asked is actually a lot bigger than you may
Right.
have initially anticipated. That's just a starting point,
Yes.
right? The next thing is, especially when we come to the storytelling thing, I would do a lot of storytelling to
Yeah.
give their unconscious mind directions to head in,
Okay.
and this will be a longer process. I do not expect that to be a one-shot deal.
Yeah.
Right? I do not expect something as extreme as what you've talked about to be a one-shot deal, because you're especially talking about doing an intervention. Has anyone here seen like an alcoholics intervention,
Yeah.
something like that, right? They're intense scenarios, and they're pretty 50-50, right? Some people go the other way. So we want to stack the deck in our favor before we start applying the strong arm, because we want to make sure we've primed them to go the direction of health, the direction of change, the direction of becoming a better person, and someone they can be happy with in themselves. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yes. That we we were thinking storytelling or dream machine would probably be one way to covertly start going in that direction.
Absolutely.
So I was wondering, going down that road, do you have any maybe more like specific tips to maybe help a person subconsciously realize that they are excited about something, like maybe through the storytelling and the dream machine, and then connect it to a value of the therapy or whatever the item that you want to
Right.
give them? Or
The answer is very simply yes. It's if they have a value for something, that is it. As long as
Okay.
they value something, there'll be some high enough level behind that that is valuable. Whether it's they have a little pet mouse and they love that mouse, right? There is a strong emotion there. You can use that as leverage, right?
Okay.
If they can care for that mouse, then they have the capacity of caring. And how much more can they do for that mouse if they can care for themselves in the same way?
Right. So just building off of something.
You
a
build,
nugget
exactly.
that you
The
found.
point is
Okay.
you want to get a little foot in the door and then slowly eke it open a little bit further, a little bit further, a little bit further. And that's really where the things like the distraction method masterclass comes in,
Okay.
and the stories and so on. You build a little bit at a time. I mean, serious, because it's a big topic, right? It's
It
not
is,
something
yeah.
you're going to expect to solve in the first hit. If you do, you got lucky and well done.
Yeah.
If you can do it consistently, please tell me how, because I'd really be interested in finding out. As far as I'm concerned, this is not a one-shot deal. You just position the idea of change, and that just slowly evolves as they can accept it more and more, because they're lower and lower at that point, right?
Right.
If it's a normal everyday individual, the process is much faster because it's actually in a pretty good place.
Yeah.
We're talking about building someone up to be in a okay place, if you see what I mean.
Yes. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Any other comments or questions? Let's have one last one, and then we can finish up for the day.
And hello.
Hello.
You know, I was working with Australian Alex in the corner over there, and what's funny is that the importance of hypnotic rapport and just that intensity of, we wound up going beyond the exercise and just starting to talk about our lives, and we wound up actually really getting into some really cool places, and I think we did some good stuff, yeah? Definitely. So,
Like it.
yeah, kick-ass, that's all I have to say.
So this stuff kind of works, right? It opens people up. You notice that? It would be fair to say that you're opening people up in a way that normal conversations usually do not.
Oh,
Would that be fair to say?
absolutely.
Yes? That's kind of what we're aiming for, right? That's exactly what we're aiming for.